Welcome to the 4th Women Deliver Conference. It is a big pleasure to be here. I'm Katja Iversen, I'm the CEO of Women Deliver. 10 years ago, when the first Women Deliver Conference took place, far too many girls and women were dying in childbirth. It was one every minute, and they lacked the access to basic contraceptive care. And also, then, way too few leaders were paying attention. Today, the situation is much better. The world recently launched the Sustainable Development Goals as symbolic 9 months ago. And they have the great potential to change and to save lives. And most importantly, the agenda and the global leaders have finally acknowledged that when you prioritize the health, rights, well-being and empowerment of girls and women, it's not only the individual, but it's the communities, it's the families, and it's the whole societies and economies that thrive. But our work is not done yet. Even today, we have 225 million women who want to avoid a pregnancy but are not using modern contraception, and then we know what happens. 31 million girls of primary school age are out of school, and every second minute a woman dies in pregnancy or childbirth. It's just not good enough. Some stats on this great 4th Women Deliver Conference. Today we reached the 5,500 registrants. It's policymakers, it's young leaders, it's journalists, it's activists, it's everything from heads of UN agencies, academics, private sector, NGOs, young, old, north, south, east, west. It's from 169 countries, have made it to Copenhagen to make sure that girls and women remain a top priority on the global agenda. The 2016 conference is bigger in scope and bigger in size than ever before. We have 20 plenaries, 115 concurrent sessions, countless side events covering topics across the development spectrum, from climate change to nutrition to gender equality to health, education, access to service, access to resources, and political empowerment. And at the core of every single of these discussions is girls and women, and how to make sure that they are at the heart of development conversations. As I say, it is not about the if and the why, it's about the how and the now. Today's speakers will provide a perspective from the international, national or local level on how to translate global goals into actions that matters for girls and women. Each speaker will discuss how we can make sure that girls and women aren't merely included in the global goals, but are put front and center, whether it's keeping girls safe in Zimbabwe, making sure they finish school in Afghanistan, or writing their health and well-being into national and global priorities. Because of the setup for the plenary, we will try to end this press conference we will end it at 3:45, and I'm a pretty fierce time police keeper. And each speaker will be given a few minutes, and then we will open the floor to questions. In addition to you here in this room, we have, and we are pleased to welcome the hundreds of journalists who are watching the press conference and the entire conference from womendeliverlive.org. And you can watch all week. There's several channels there. When we get to the Q&A, I will take questions from here, but also from the online. You can send, if you're coming in online, you can send your questions to, or you can send your question using hashtag WDLive and AskWD. You can also share your questions using social media chat section immediately to the right of the WD Live screen when you're online. The panel today is including His Excellency, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Kristian Jensen, David Nabarro, Special Advisor on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Climate Change to the Secretary General, Dr. Sakina Yacobi, CEO, Afghan Institute of Learning, and Yemerai Nyoni, founder of Dot Youth Organization, Women Deliver board member, and a Women Deliver young leader. The Minister, Christian Jensen, His Excellency the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Christian Jensen, has been a member of the Danish Parliament since 1998. He has made gender equality a prime focus since his first day in office. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, he has made sure that girls' and women's health and rights are top priority in Denmark's foreign and development policy. Minister Jensen is a walking proof of our duty to ensure that we leave no one behind. Mr. Minister?
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to Copenhagen. Denmark is one of the countries in the world that has gained the most of having gender equality. We have had for decades a participation of women in education, in research and science, and as well in the working force that has lifted us to the stage of prosperity and well-being that we have in Denmark today. The idea of having shared responsibility when it comes to housing, to child carriage, to taking care of the family gives the possibility for everyone to strive to show what she or he is doing the best. And Denmark is also a country that has a strong brand for gender equality. So having Women Deliver here is kind of like having the World Cup in football coming to England and being played at Wembley. So we're so pleased that we're seeing so many delegates, so many guests coming here to be a part of Women Deliver in Copenhagen. It is often said that the face of poverty is the face of a woman. That is sadly true. But it's also true that the face of a woman is a face of possibility, prosperity, and peace. And we must make that true. And in order to make that true, it is a combination of giving the right incentives and having the right advocacy and NGOs around the world to do the job of transferring the minds, on convincing those who are still lagging behind that gender equality is not something you should put other things aside in order to get. Having gender equality gives you a society with the possibility to reach your goals, to do what you want to. The reports we have seen from McKinsey and other places are showing that gender equality will grow the economy of the countries, will give them better possibilities to reach the goals that they do have. From time to time I'm asked, why has Denmark gotten to this level of gender equality? Actually, I think that's a crazy question, stupid question. The right question should be, why doesn't the other countries follow? What are holding them back? And I hope this conference, being a conference not of the long speeches, not of the fancy documents that we are going to fight over in back rooms, this should be a conference on exactly what to do when we return to our daily life. How to take initiatives and ideas and put them into real life, into real play, and change the world for the goods of girls, but also for the goods of boys. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Jensen. And next I'd like to introduce a die-hard feminist, Dr. Nabarro. He's been a strong champion for girls' and women's issues even before his time as the UN Secretary General Special Advisor on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. And today he will tell us more about how we can transform the world by 2030.
Friends, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was agreed by world leaders in September last year after 3 years of negotiations. It's made up of 17 goals that cover the whole spectrum of human interest, from economic growth to social inclusion, to environmental protection. They're basically a plan for the future of our world and its people. They're the only plan that we've got. We don't have a plan B, we don't have a planet B. And that's why they're very much the center of global attention right now, and they're the central feature of this conference. I sometimes describe them as a tapestry of concerns that have to be looked at in an interconnected way. But right centrally with them, in them, is Goal 5, which is the goal for women's empowerment and gender parity. And I tell you, this 2030 agenda won't work unless it's understood as a feminist agenda. And by feminist, I mean based on the belief that women and men are fully equal. Indeed, women's empowerment is a prerequisite for success in this agenda for addressing the world's greatest challenge, climate change and other challenges at that level of importance. Women and girls are core priorities for development, which means we have to put masses of attention into ensuring that they're able to achieve their fullest potential. But they're also the primary agents of change when it comes to promoting peace and security, or ensuring human rights, or making the kind of changes that I've just described. They're frontline responders in disease situations like the Ebola outbreak on which I worked 2 years ago. They build resilience during humanitarian crises. They ensure the survival and well-being of their children, their families, and their communities. Without women at the center, the future of the world cannot be ensured. But in order that women are going to be able to perform this role, they need the tools, the information, the education, the opportunities, the health, the security that's required to perform these roles. And my presence here at Women Deliver, representing the Secretary General of the United Nations and working with all who are here, is to do all I can to ensure that the interests of women are at the heart of this 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
Thank you, David Nabarro. And now we will hear from Dr. Sakina Yacoubi. Dr. Sakina Yacoubi is a tireless and fearless champion of girl health and rights, particularly the rights to education. She's the founder and CEO of Afghan Institute of Learning, AIL, under her leadership has developed into a groundbreaking grassroots organization providing education, training healthcare, and legal services to more than 12 million Afghans and empowering women, children, and communities to live harmoniously and more peacefully. Dr. Sakina.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Tanks and guns are not going to educate girls. Educating girls, you need a book, you need a pen, you need a teacher, and you need a classroom. And why I'm talking to you this, for 25 years, we have been working from the refugee camp in Pakistan, Peshawar, to the time of Taliban underground, and now in Afghanistan. We could see the impact of education. Education really changed mind, really transformed women. Today, the women of Afghanistan are not the same women that they have been 20 years ago or 10 years ago. The education system has changed their mind completely. Today, the women of Afghanistan are unbelievably strong, willing to ask questions and do critical thinking. Yes, the women of Afghanistan are like any other woman in conflict zone, they need a safe environment. In order for us to provide a safe environment, we must educate the barbaric society. We must work for gender equality also, if we want to accomplish something. And also not only we have to work in gender equality, we must also work in the health issue, because the women are really exhausted and they are not educated. As a result, they are not able to take care of themselves. So really, we need to work in the area of health. Also, if we want women to stand up on their own, and if we want women to be self-sufficient, and not only that, if we want them as a leader, which they are a great leader, I don't think Any country could have a better leader if there is a woman there. The women are really the core of every nation, and they will be excellent leader if we give them equal opportunity and also if we give them the educational arena. And how we are going to give that educational arena? With quality education. We must provide quality education for women that they will be transformed and also they will blossom. For example, in Afghanistan, we have still conflict. We have still situation that is not good. But we are educating 6 million children, 3 million of them, or 2.5 million of them are girls. All the girls are going to school and everybody learns. We have a long way to go, but we are really working very hard to really accomplish that goal by just giving community after community a choice that they will be backing up the woman. If we don't have the community backing the woman, we will not be able to accomplish what we are after. So my point is that today is to really share with you that education is the key issue, that economically empower women, politically empower women, and socially empower women. We need women to be in this, every one of this area, and Afghanistan is getting there. We have a long way to go, but we are there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jacobi. And now you will hear from what I think is a living proof that young people are not just the leaders of tomorrow, they are very much the leaders of today. You'll meet Yemurai Nyoni. He's the founder of DOT Youth Organization in Zimbabwe. He's also a Women Deliver board member. And he organizes young men in his community to say no to early marriage. He's dedicated his work to advancing meaningful youth participation. If you're not at the table, you're often on the menu. He's passionate about addressing developmental concerns affecting girls and women, and has worked in many different contexts, both nationally and globally. Take it away.
Awesome, thank you, Katya. And I think first of all, I'd like to just appreciate how Daring Women Deliver has been in this conference in giving us as young people what I can call center stage. There are a lot of jealous groups that wish they had the same attention, but I think we deserve it. And I mean, we are literally going to inherit the world, and in about 14 or so years' time, we will be in positions of power. Hopefully, we'll be in positions of power before then. Maybe we'll be in Dr. Nabarro's office. Maybe we will be ministers of health within the Danish ministry. So, thank you, Katya. I think one thing for me is that I've realized the problems we have in this world stem from the misuse of power. And that the same power we use to create injustice, to create exploitation, to continue the oppression of women, is literally the same power, if used well, that can reverse all these development challenges. So in the case of Zimbabwe, our country is largely patriarchal. As a young man, there's a lot of privilege I enjoy by virtue of being a young man. And most of that comes at the expense of young women, comes at the expense of girls. Oftentimes the power I have comes at the expense of the weakness of women and girls. And for me, that's unacceptable. For us as young people, constantly within the Youth Pre-Conference, we've said this is unacceptable. And one experience that drew me to that and made me understand this is that of a friend of mine now called Tekla. Tekla shared with me a story that she asked me and other young leaders within Zimbabwe to share, and I'll share it with you today. She was married off at the age of 12. She thought she was going to work. She got there ready, thinking she was going to do domestic work. Her family was not too well to do financially. She come from an area called Epworth in Zimbabwe. Still, that area is in grave challenges with regards to poverty. And when she got there, she was raped by her employer's son. And she managed to get her neighbors to come in and intervene. They arrested this young man, they took him to prison. And there it emerged that her parents had sold her off. for a couple of cows because they couldn't afford to keep her in school and they were out of money. Tekla, from that experience, became pregnant. She got infected with HIV. In that same year, she lost her child. And for many years after that, she lived in denial and had to deal with very grave risks and difficult challenges. What I'm happy about, though, today is that she has emerged victorious from that experience. She always had a passion to be a teacher, so she dedicated most of her time and is still dedicating most of her time to working to educate young people on HIV, on how to live positively. Well, not every story ends this way. And sadly, across the world, 39,000 girls, more than 39,000 girls become child brides every day. Actually are sexually exploited every day. And for us as young men, for us as young people, even within our community, we realize that we have some form of power within our current system, and we decided to use that power to confront those with greater power, to talk to members of parliament, to engage with community leaders, and to have them address this injustice. And being that pensive, being that tenacious, and pushing these boundaries is what was able even to bring them to be able to accept that this is an unacceptable practice. And today I can gladly say in the country, we are fast moving towards the criminalization of child marriage. So that in a sense is the power of youth leadership, and I'm glad that we're starting to take good steps towards that.
Thanks a lot, Yamarai. And just a statistic to accompany what Yamarai just said. 20% of all participants at the Women Deliver Conference is under the age of 30, and that's absolutely on purpose. And 80% of all participants have never been to a Women Deliver Conference before, so this is not going to be business as usual. Thank you to all the speakers. I have the honor of launching a big campaign today. It's a Women Deliver powered campaign, but it comes with, it's done by a lot of partners. We really want to use this momentum that we have in the world today. I see the tide change for girls and women. I see so much more attention. We see progress. We also see challenges that still need to be overcome. So today we are launching a campaign we call Deliver for Good. And it is an integrated, multi-sector campaign. It's a global push that applies a gender lens to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets. And we have identified 12 investments. That's where we have to put the pressure now, practically, politically, and financially. That's where we need to invest. We have done, kind of the whole policy brief and all of that. That's all online. You can go and see it. We look at these 12 investments, and it spans everything from Women Deliver's history, maternal, newborn health, nutrition, access to contraception, reproductive health, sexual and reproductive health and rights, broader health, gender-based violence, including child marriage, female genital cutting, education, economic empowerment, political participation, access to resources, women and environment, and not least, data. Women count them and count them in. So this is a campaign that we are asking everyone to sign on to. We have a very beautiful commitment. And the notion is that women deliver and so much more than babies. They're drivers of development, and they are sometimes vulnerable, but they are just as much agents of change and powerhouses who we really need to invest in their health and rights and well-being, because everybody will win. So it's a long term. We're looking at now, we have the beautiful Sustainable Development Goals, but now it also happens in country. What's going to happen there? How do we get girls and women centrally placed there? And that's the purpose of this push. So share it. You can stay informed. You can socialize. I know it's already running on social, and support. And now I'd like to open the floor for questions. I will take 3 questions here, and then we will turn online. Who would like to go first? And please present yourself and your affiliation and who the question is directed to. We're asking for questions.
I'm an Indian journalist. My name is Sharat Pradhan. I'm a freelance. And this morning I was walking down the streets of Copenhagen, and right in front of the railway station there was a statue of a woman with the whole long writing on it, and especially being kept there in chains, and that was describing the exploitation of women who are driven into prostitution, physical, mental, economic, and social exploitation. So what I wish to, I wish to draw the attention of this conference, and also to know whether anything concrete has been, why is it that nothing world over, this is not a problem here, just world over, why nothing much has been able to do for these women?
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm a journalist from Bangladesh. My name is Hasib. I work with BDNews24.com. So my question is to the Danish Foreign Minister. So as the conference comes to your town, so what would be your commitment? I mean, Danish commitment to the world for, achieving the gender equality or for the cause of women and girls?
Thank you. And we had a question up here.
My name is Asma Abbas. I'm a Danish journalist reporting to Yakin radio station in Jordan. My question to you, Minister of Foreign Affairs in Denmark. You have talked about the initiatives after leaving this conference, after we go to our daily lives, as you have mentioned. Do you think that the local people that Women Deliver is meant to support are involved enough and the right way? Are they aware of what's about all their needs, maybe, especially when we talk about the girls and the young women? Are they really involved the right way? Are they aware of where they should reach?
Thank you very much. Panel, Christian, Mr. Minister, would you start?
Well, I would start, and I will focus on the two questions directed at me. Denmark has this long-standing history of supporting women and girls, both in our own legislation and being a role model to the world, but also in our official development aid. Last year, we spent 3.5 billion Danish kroner on initiatives that has a focus on gender equality, and we spent 500 million Danish kroner on initiatives directed against or to support of sexual and reproductive health and rights. So this has been a commitment that we have had and we will continue to have, and I will present in next month the new development strategy for Denmark. And I can say already now that the Sustainable Development Goal number 5 about gender equality will be a centerpiece in our new development strategy. So we will continue to have this very high on our agenda, and I give that promise that it will be a cornerstone of the new strategic paper coming out next month.
Thank you.
You asked about the awareness. I think there's a huge problem that many girls are not aware of the rights they have. Many women are not aware of the rights they have. Together with the Danish Crown Prince, I just visited Burkina Faso, and they have a perfect legislation making child marriage illegal. The problem is they don't know it in the villages. So what is very important for us here is to bring the message out in every platform, social media, traditional media, but also by the reputation we can send out of here and by the ambassadors we're sending back from here. I'm so pleased that we have this youth forum, because through the youth, as a peer-to-peer education or storytelling, we can enlarge the knowledge about the rights and enlarge the knowledge, as Women Deliver saying, when you invest in girls and women, everybody wins.
Thank you.
Well, as far as women goes, I think that education is the key issue to really create an environment that those women who are not aware of their rights, they learn. For example, what Afghan Institute of Learning is doing, we are giving workshop on human rights, women's rights, and thousands of women come in the workshop, and this workshop are through participatory methodology, and we provide for them what is their right, how they can use their right, and also what kind of leader they can use, how can they vote for their leader, and what is the good leader can do for them. They can ask their right if they really vote for a good leader who is capable, who has the capacity to do the job. So I believe that education is the key issue to really teaching those through workshop, through radio program, through television, and through different kind of methodology. We can provide this, it build their capacity, that they will be asked questions. Yes, there are many women, especially in the villages, that they are not able to read and write. Still, they don't know about their right. And also there are many women and girls who are not able to really use technology, and that is, again, is the issue. We are trying to use technology, especially in the villages, mobile phone, that we teach them about their right also through mobile phone. This way, I think that we are going to make the world to be aware of their right.
Thank you very much. We will go on to 3 questions online. Britt, you're the star behind the WD 2016 hashtag. What have we got then?
Okay, so the first 2 questions. So the first 2 questions from the virtual audience are for all the panelists. So the first one is from a Twitter user in Uganda, and they would like to know, how are all of you going to ensure that all voices, girls, women, and youth, are heard?
Good.
Okay, and question number 2 is from an Instagram user in Canada, and they would like to know, what are you asking citizens in your country and in others to do to achieve gender equality? And the third and final question is for Yemurai, from a journalist in Malawi, from Yoneko FM radio, and they say, many African governments do not commit adequate resources to programs and initiatives that promote the welfare of girls and women. What can African leaders, both in politics and civil society organizations, do to make girls and women a priority?
Right, let's start with the last one. Yemurai, would you?
Okay, thank you. And greetings in Malawi. I don't know if it's possible to tweet that. I'll try and be quick. I think the issue is money, so the solution is money. If we don't have enough resources for work on child marriage, we need enough resources for work on child marriage. And if we believe that child marriage is no place in our future, then we should be daring enough to request that it become a priority for financial support. I remember for example, in Zimbabwe, we have the Ministry of Women Affairs, Gender and Community Development is also sufficiently under-resourced. And I also believe that's the case in many other countries. So it's important for political commitment to provide resources for work to achieve gender equality. That should be a priority because it has benefits for other development targets. Africa also is dealing with the demographic dividend. It's impossible for us to reap any economic benefit if we continue to just calculate the value of young women according to how soon they get married and how much we make out of the transaction in bride price. So it's important that women be valued within economies, they be valued for the full potential that they possess. And anyway, that's 50% of the total population. If we are going to not invest financially in that proportion of the population, then I kind of dare women also to stand with young people and perhaps withdraw their taxes from governments that are not accountable to them.
Thank you very much. Then the 2 questions to all was, how do we have all voices heard, and what can citizens do?
I really believe that this is the issue that really all of us should think about it, especially in the villages, and also the majority of the population are very poor. And usually we are inviting in places, in conferences, in workshop, just the people who are really urbanized, and we are not thinking about the village people, about the community. So we need to get them involved. That is one way that we can do it. And the second way that we can do it, also we request from our government to really put aside a budget for spending in the community, in the village level, that really we make those people be aware of their rights and be aware that their voice can be listened. There are places that there is not a school available, there is not center available for those poor people, poor villagers. So we need to work on those areas, and I am sure that if we concentrate on that, we will reach them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if I may, first of all, how should all voices be heard? Well, the one thing we can do is to make our own voices be heard. So don't be silent. When you see things that are not gender equal, when you see that girls are being pushed back, don't be silent. Speak up, speak out. Make sure that it is not just being passed over. And this even comes with the smaller things in life, because many problems start with allowing smaller things to happen and then grow and grow and grow. Another thing is I'd like to stress what has been successful in Denmark is that we have used very much NGOs and civil society organizations to make an outreach, because there are many things we can do and do well when we come as the Royal Danish government or a Royal Danish ambassador, but there are other ways to get in contact, and there are other ways to get people to talk to us and give us their voices, and that is through the civil society organizations, through the NGOs, and I will hope that we all find a good spot for them in our politics. Then you ask, what should we do about the citizens in our society? I think it was the question from Canada. Well, I think we should all strive to do better. Even when we look in Denmark, we still have issues where we can try to see if we can do things better. And naturally, what works in Denmark is not necessarily the same that works in the US or in Afghanistan. Everyone must look into their own society, see where is our place in the gender equality and what is the next thing to do. I think, for instance, one thing Denmark could do is that we have too few female leaders in public administration. There's been a lot of focus on having female leaders. I can see now that the Undersecretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who is a male, got nervous. But actually, we've been talking so much about girls and women in the private sector. I think the most obvious thing to do is also to look into what, as a minister, I could do in the public sector.
Thanks. David?
Thank you very much. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is universal. It applies to all nations. It applies to Denmark, but also it applies to some of the poorest nations as well. So these 17 goals, including the gender equality goal, apply everywhere. The 2030 Agenda also commits to leaving no one behind. So if there are communities where women are particularly vulnerable or exploited, then they need to be exposed and acted on. The 2030 Agenda requires inclusive action to implement it, which means all sections of society involved. So those of us working in development have a responsibility to ensure that there is an opportunity for all to speak, that there is a willingness to listen to what they say and to hear, and then that there is a responsibility to respond. It's not always easy, but it's got to be done.
Thank you. And then time flies when you're having fun, so I will just end with a couple of stats from the conference and beyond, and then we will say thank you for today. There will be more than 700 speakers, as I said before, 20 plenaries, 115 concurrent sessions. We'll have a whole stage that focuses on films and arts. There's a speaker's corner, there's a social enterprise challenge, there's an Abbey hour, and what's really new is that the Danes have taken this to them. So there will be more than 100 events around Copenhagen this week that focuses on gender equality and women and girls' health rights and well-being. And it's everything from a bicycle ride with fathers who are out here right now to there's so many different things. We have a list of what it is if you want to know it. So I will ask you to remain seated, and then I will wish you a very great conference. Thank you.